Time now for the 10-minute war, which means we welcome in perhaps the one and only, and maybe we found them, the one and only reasonable bucknut. He is good friend Mark Rogers, who himself has a fantastic channel here on YouTube. You can look at it, watch it, get informed by it. The voice of college football. Just look for Mark Rogers right here on YouTube. And Mark, good to have you back, brother. How are you?
Doing well, Steve. Our college football season is in the books, and wow, we've got an SEC as the national champion.
How about 4 teams that started the season unranked in the AP poll finished in the top 10? Something like half the poll started the season unranked and finished the season ranked. I think we learned that, with the exception of what happened at the very top with the teams that made the playoff, to completely just throw out whatever data sample we got out of that COVID year beyond those 4 teams. Your thoughts?
Well, I would agree with that, and you've covered that ground and covered it very well in regards to that data not necessarily being as accurate as it has been in past years. But we've even seen this as a trend during the college football playoff era, where we've got a bead on the very top teams in the country, the elite 5 or 6. But then past that, for as predictable as that portion of college football is, the rest of college football is pretty unpredictable. I looked at preseason predictions versus the final rankings and standings in college football, and more so the standings than the rankings, and found that typically we've got anywhere from 18 to 24 teams in 3 consecutive years prior to the COVID year who either gained or lost 3 games in the standings from one year to the other in the Power 5. So that's a third of the Power 5.
That's a lot of variance there for sure. So we started the show off with a theme this week, as we typically do, and that theme is, what does Michigan need to do to take the final step as a program? It took the next step this year. It went from pretty good to being a championship program, finishing number 3. Highest finish for the program since the 1997 National Championship. It's the first top 5 finish this century. They hadn't done it since Tom Brady's senior year in 1999 when they finished number 5. It's the 16th top 5 finish, though, in school history, so it's not like this is, something they're not used to accomplishing. It just looked like they weren't going to accomplish it anytime in the near future heading into this year because it had been so long. So they break that seal and they take the next step. And at the time we're recording this, we're assuming Jim Harbaugh will be back as Michigan coach, and I believe that he will be based on what I'm hearing, but we'll see. But let's just make that assumption for now. I think there are 2 things that Michigan needs to do in order to take the final step now and win a national championship. One of them is simple. The other is far more complicated. The simple step is to finally develop a first-round caliber quarterback. And that could essentially create a situation now where you imagine Oklahoma, but with like a top 20, 25 kind of a defense, where you've got the guy, whether that's J.J. McCarthy, whether that's guys that are coming up in the next 2 recruiting classes in Michigan's own backyard who are going to be big-time national recruits. A lot of people think Dante Moore is the second best quarterback in college and for the next class, other than Arch Manning. C.J. Carr, Lloyd Carr's kid, I think just was the top junior quarterback at the U.S. Army All-American game. So have one of those 3 guys, and I don't know that you can sign both Moore and Carr, but you're probably going to sign at least one of them. All right. So have one of those guys be that guy. Because when you have a first-round caliber quarterback, the margin for error that presides over the rest of the team, we saw it in the SEC championship game. All right. You saw last night that when those weapons were taken away and now Bryce Young can't chuck and duck his way past Stetson Bennett to win, everywhere else on the field, and eventually Georgia was the one that was the boa constrictor, they were the better football team on virtually every other position group on the field. So unless you can recruit at that level, and we're going to get to that in the next one, the current level you're recruiting at, it's a little bit like college basketball, where you can be a top 8 or 9 recruiter, but if you've got a great point guard, say Michigan State, they don't quite recruit at the Duke, Kentucky level, but they have a pretty good point guard most years. If you can do that at quarterback with your current recruiting base, then add a first-round caliber quarterback, that is one key to unlock that final step. Your thoughts on that first suggestion?
Well, my first thought is that I've been mesmerized by how good you look in that Big Ten championship T-shirt. Steve, do you really think this program can elevate to national championship status, or should we just go with Bo Schembechler's adage that the Big Ten is everything and just win the Big Ten? Boy, because that climb from 8-4 fringe top 25 status to number 3 in the country is a monumental one and substantial one. But the next jump to win 2 playoff games against the likes of what we saw last night is monumental. So you hit on the most important position on the field, of course. And I think our best example over recent years during the college football playoff era would be the Clemson Tigers, who before they were able to recruit at the Alabama-Ohio State level.
I used this example, the 2016 team with Deshaun Watson that beat Alabama. Yeah.
Yes. So you've got a top 12 roster in the country. I believe their team talent ranking for one of those championship years was only, I think it was the first time they made it to the championship game, was only 13, and they had Deshaun Watson at quarterback. So that makes up a ton of ground against Jake Coker, who never, of course, played in the NFL, and an Alabama team that was just flat out better. So it's the most important position, and they've got a guy at head coach who certainly knows the position at the highest level. And whatever supplementary coaching development is required past that, that is the position to cure a lot of ills.
So, for example, if Andrew Luck, the year that he's the number 1 overall pick in the NFL, if he's the quarterback on this Michigan football team, we still can't sit here and say for certain that they beat Georgia, but I think you and I can say for certain the game is not 34-11. It's far more interesting than that.
Yeah, it's more interesting than that, and it probably is a better approach than going out like Kirby Smart does and winning it the hard way. You take your 5'8", 3-star walk-on and you get it done that way.
Right.
But, of course, they're loaded everywhere else.
All right.
Yeah, I just got to think that quarterback is the place to be, and maybe J.J. McCarthy's that guy. Again, I'm going to go back to something that I stated early in the 2021 season with Michigan football, that I thought the handling of the quarterback situation was, I'm not going to say brilliant. That's a bit of a stretch, but it was a smart way to approach it, to get JJ the reps against good teams in meaningful spots, but not compromise Cade's status as the team leader.
So I think you and I agree that step's it's not easy, but it's a simple step. That one's pretty cut and dry. All right. And chances are, whether it's JJ McCarthy or Dante Moore or CJ Carr in ensuing classes, if you can't do it with one of those 3 guys, you're just not going to do it here. So that one seems pretty cut and dry. The second option is a little bit more complicated, particularly here north of the Mason-Dixon line. Just start dropping bags. I mean, you've openly got Kirby Smart on television this morning, openly getting their financial house in order. I mean, everybody knows what Texas A&M just did with NIL. Their boosters put that arguably historically great class together for them. And now A&M's got quite an alumni base and an endowment program, but as I've mentioned before, the average SEC team, even though their boosters have a lot of cash, has nothing compared to the endowments and alumni bases places like Michigan, Penn State, and Notre Dame bring to the table. And a lot of that just sits on mothballs. All right, so mobilize that. Just start dropping bags so that the next time you play Georgia, it's not 19 5-star prospects to your 4. Start leveling the playing field that way. That's the other option because it's completely legal now. So just start doing that. Now, administratively, Michigan still wants to largely pretend that it is 2005, and it's not. Okay. But that's the other option to get there, is to just start dropping bags.
So going back to the Clemson example, Dabo Swinney says it all the time. He said that we looked around the country and said, do we truly want to be an elite football program? Do we want to be known as a football power? And we're going to have to do everything that it possibly takes and it's just not a football thing. It's just not a football program thing. Hire a great football coach, let him hire a staff. No, it has to start from the top and on down. And now that's been amplified by this NIL, that it goes well beyond the walls of the football building at any university to compete in this day and age. So in addition to just flat out money, and I don't know if Michigan's there. I don't know because of what you just stated, and you know the landscape so much better than I do, but I see mixed results in regards of what they showed us last season during the pandemic and where their football commitment was versus what they showed us during the offseason leading into the 21 season, where they seemed a little bit more committed to football, although that may have just been an adjustment of giving Jim Harbaugh an ultimatum, basically saying, step up and win or you're out. And that's not something that's not going to be done at other places. I don't know if they've shown us the football commitment that it requires to do this. So the money's one thing. So the money is a requirement, but I also think there's a level of creativity that's probably needed by forward-thinking type people who understand NIL, understand what's going on in this world, just in general, the economic landscape of crypto and metaverse and NFTs and all of that. Get people like that involved. They can create ways to generate revenue and draw in student athletes that understand that language.
I completely, wholeheartedly agree with that. And I think that'll be something to monitor moving forward. Final thing before we let you go, a little bit off the beaten path, but still in the same subject matter. The talks on expanding the college football playoff appear to be completely stalled. And here's what I think. I think our league is driving this. I think that when the SEC went out and got Oklahoma and Texas after the original format expansion was announced, that it seemed too cute and a power play by the SEC to essentially turn this thing into half of the teams every year from their league. And now they've just gone out and added 2 of the 10 winningest programs of all time, in addition to the power league that they already have. And I think that particularly at the Big Ten, where you've got a major television partner in Fox, I think what's driving this is the stall, because I keep seeing sports writers say things like, don't these other leagues know they're just going to face 2 SEC teams every year? I don't think it's about that. I think this is about delaying the expansion until the monolithic control of SEC ESPN over the sport can be diluted, if not outright dethroned, by bringing in more television partners like Fox, Amazon, others. And so I think this is a delay, stall tactic in order to get there, because they all agree they want expansion. And I just don't believe whether those half of those teams are automatic qualifiers or not, whether it would maybe change the outcome of 1 or 2 teams, the original proposal to what the Big Ten wants every year. And there's no guarantee that would even be a Big Ten team that would benefit from that. Okay. To me, what's driving this is the Big Ten has a great desire to dilute the power and control monolithically that SEC ESPN has over the sport, and they're trying to delay it until additional TV partners can bid on this. And I know this is an area where you have a little experience. You come out of that world. What do you think?
Well, I think that the Big Ten is fighting an uphill battle. We all know that, and we're going to talk more of the recruiting aspect next week. But certainly they're positioning themselves and maybe partnering once again with the Pac-12, because part of the disagreement and the alternate proposal comes from the Pac-12 as well, which is trying to protect its champion and give it an automatic berth, which you would think would be automatic based on the top 6 conferences reaching the playoff. But that has come under question in recent years with the deterioration of the Pac-12. So that is certainly something that is a solid philosophy on your part, that the Big Ten is I got to think that there's something else in play, but I'm not necessarily coming up with it in regards to, delaying all this. And maybe just the fact that they want to show the SEC that it's not controlling the sport, that they want what they want, and that they can make a power play and get what they want as well. I think that it may be as simple as a portion of that, just showing that we have a hand in this as well. We have a major voice that's just as strong as the SEC.
And one way you do that is you leverage your television partners into that process instead. And I don't know. There's a lot of talk, all the SEC chants and all that kind of stuff. It's funny. I'm down south several times a year with what I do with my day job. I don't ever see people wearing SEC T-shirts, SEC hats. Okay, I think a lot of that is just a college sports version of a virtue signal and a meme. But we'll see how serious everybody is about that for the next 3 years when they've got 16 teams and all those big brands and only 2 of them are going to the playoff every year. And the rest of them are all playing a bunch of postseason games that most of their own players don't even care about. And programs like Texas and Oklahoma might be finishing 6th, 7th, or 8th in the conference. See what I'm saying? That 6th, 7th, or 8th looks a lot different when you're only getting 2 teams in a playoff as opposed to when you're getting 5 or 6, if you know what I'm saying, brother.
Well, I know what you're saying. And for as much as I want an expanded playoff, for the competitive aspect of what's on the field and to get a rightful champion that's earned the playoff spot and to get representation from all the leagues, that's under reasonable circumstances. That's minus NIL. That's minus players opting out. And all of that distorts the field and what we cherish about postseason football and college football that may further deteriorate anything outside the playoff. And consider this. We saw a number of games affected by opt-outs, of course, but the Peach Bowl in particular, Kenny Pickett, Kenneth Walker, the 2 headliners, consider this. They opted out of 1 bowl game, and people get a little bit startled. Hey, it's a Peach Bowl or it's a Rose Bowl. It's the most important bowl game outside the playoff. Consider what would be facing these players in a 16-team playoff where they would consider, okay, for us to accomplish the ultimate and win the championship, you're asking us to play 3 games? Well, I would be willing to put my neck on the line for 1 game, but I'm not so sure that they're not going to opt out for a 3-game scenario.
Good stuff, Mark, as always, man. We'll talk to you again next week, all right? Take care.
All right, Steve. Good to see you.
You bet.